Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. Congress has not yet prevented one potential government shutdown, and the next one is right around the corner. On Wednesday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew warned that our nation will hit the debt ceiling limit on October 17th. At that point, the Treasury Department will have only $30 billion in cash on hand. In a letter to Speaker John Boehner, Secretary Lew wrote, "This amount would be far short of the net expenditures on certain days, which can be as high as $60 billion. He warned that if Congress doesn't raise the debt limit, quote, "It would be impossible for the United States of America to meet all of its obligations for the first time in our history," end quote. But rather than working on a reasonable plan to prevent an economic disaster, House Republicans have prepared a long list of demands they want met before raising the debt limit. Those demands include approving the Keystone XL pipeline, weakening the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, cutting more than $100 billion from federal health programs, and, of course, delaying Obamacare for another year. Essentially, Republicans want President Obama to pretend he didn't win the last presidential election and agree to nearly every major right-wing policy idea. And House Republicans say they're willing to hold our entire economy hostage until their demands are met. President Obama has vowed not to negotiate over our nation's debt limit, but one side is going to have to give in to avoid a financial crisis. This is no way to run a government. This is an economic game of chicken that puts our nation at risk for a major disaster, and millions of Americans are waiting to see who blinks first. In screwed news, for the second time in a single year, the National Fair Housing Alliance has accused Bank of America of racial discrimination. According to a complaint filed with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Bank of America allows foreclosed homes in minority neighborhoods to fall into disrepair. Those decaying homes then bring down property values for the entire neighborhood. But the too-big-to-jail bank properly maintains foreclosed homes in predominantly white neighborhoods. The complaint lists findings for 18 different metro areas and documented a clear pattern on the part of Bank of America ignoring structural and cosmetic issues in black or Hispanic neighborhoods. And despite the overwhelming, well-documented evidence, the Supreme Court may allow that bank to get away with it. In just a few months, the justices will hear a case challenging the theory of disparate impact, which HUD uses to evaluate racial discrimination in housing. If the High Court's right-wing justices strike down the use of that theory, minorities will have to show that housing discrimination was intentional to challenge it in court. Once again, our nation could move backwards in the fight for equality, and the too-big-to-jail banksters could get away with another one of their crimes. In the best of the rest of the news, millions of Americans are still angry about government spying, and the international community has expressed outrage over U.S. surveillance as well. So, a bipartisan group of 4 senators has teamed up to put an end to phone data collection. Democrats Ron Wyden, Mark Udall, and Richard Blumenthal have joined forces with Republican Senator Rand Paul to draft legislation to stop widespread NSA surveillance programs and open some FISA court records. Under their proposed bill, the National Security Agency would still be able to collect data from terrorist suspects, but sweeping bulk data collection would be prohibited. Senator Ron Wyden said that his legislation expresses our bipartisan view of what Congress must do to enact real, not cosmetic, intelligence reform. The disclosures over the last 100 data have caused a sea change in the way the public views the surveillance system, end quote. This legislation faces an uphill battle in Congress as senators from both sides of the aisle have expressed support for surveillance programs. But millions of Americans are happy to see at least a few senators are standing up against government spying. Public opposition to Walmart's awful labor practices is actually having an effect. After years of protests by workers and numerous opposition campaigns against poverty wages, the low-wage employer announced they will finally be making some positive changes. According to Walmart, 35,000 part-time employees will soon be moved to full-time and will have access to full health care benefits. Walmart recently placed dead last in the American Customer Satisfaction Index, and experts believe that their low ranking is the result of understaffing in their retail stores and continued bad press over how they treat their employees. According to Forbes magazine, Walmart's business is going south due to the company's penchant for putting politics and the squeeze on Walmart employees ahead of the kind of customer satisfaction that produces prosperity over the long term. Essentially, most people don't want to shop at stores that aren't well-stocked and staffed because employees are stretched thin, overworked, or underpaid. and Walmart workers can't afford to purchase items with poverty wages. It appears that striking workers have won this round. They have a long fight ahead on the road to living wages and fair treatment by Walmart. And finally, after finding a $100 bill in a box of cookies from Walmart, an Oregon man went back to the store to inspect the other packages. The man, identified only as Phil, said the remaining 3 boxes were still there, so I looked at the one and I looked at the other, and lo and behold, there was a second $100 bill. A store manager explained that the case was probably left by a generous stranger who came into the store last Christmas and paid off layaway charges for random families. The anonymous kindness is certainly heartwarming, but Phil may also want to check the cookie's expiration date. And that's the way it is today, Thursday, September 26th, 2013. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.